When you're lost in the darkness, look for the ClickerCast, everyone. Welcome back to our very special limited run series here at GamerGuild TV, where we'll be breaking down each and every episode of HBO's The Last of Us, from its plot to its characters, its video game comparisons, and every spore-sized detail in between. Before we get into it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all the great content we do here at GamerGuild TV, like these very TV show reviews, like our usual weekly live streams where we play a video game with you, our wonderful audience out there, and more importantly, our weekly gaming podcast, the GamerGuild Podcast, which has been going for over 5 years now, where myself, Richie, and some of our best friends get together to round up all of the week's video game news. It's available here on YouTube, and it's available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. You just need to search for GamerGuild TV, the GamerGuild Podcast, or the ClickerCast, and you will find us there every single week, bringing you all the news and entertainment. Your host for the week are myself, at Arcane Rogue, the consistent one on this show, and the brick to my bottle, who has shorter hair this week and has much more facial hair, my co-host, Mr. Richie. Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Claiming I'm not consistent. I missed one episode because I was in a different country.
It's 100% more than I've missed.
The holiday was booked before HBO announced the release date.
That's true. That's fair. We can't work our lives around that, but it's glad to have you back. And of course, if you've not checked out last week's episode, we had a very special appearance from my wife for her first piece of content she's ever done here. Richie was going away. We thought, do we do a double bill this week again, as we have done in previous weeks? But no, she stepped up to the plate. She knows the show just as well as we do, because she hears me talk about it every damn week before we prep for this show. And of course, she's played through the game with me several times over, so she's very familiar with the characters and the story. And Naughty Dog's pretty much her favorite developer in terms of what their output is. So great to have in. And Richie, it allowed you to go enjoy the beautiful country of France without dragging you away to talk about spores, infected, clickcasts, and plot details. But you're feeling ready to go for the finale? You're back for the big one?
I am, but I just found it funny that before your wife stepped in, you were planning to make me call in to do the show.
Absolutely, from the Eiffel Tower, direct from the top of the Eiffel Tower. You get the best signal up there, apparently.
He was insisting I go up the Eiffel Tower and call in.
Absolutely. But as you did miss last week, Richie, now we normally get straight into the show, but I think with it being the finale, we won't be back for potentially 2 years. Do you want to give the audience just a little bit of a taste of what your feelings were on last week's episode? Of course, the amazing flashback episode. We got a lot more Pedro, and we basically condensed all of the game's flashbacks into 50 minutes of TV. So I just want to get your quick thoughts on that before we get into this week.
To be honest, it's been quite a bit of a blur the last week or so. So I did watch the episode when we got back, but I was jet lagged and tired and stuff.
Hang on a minute.
Hang on
a minute. You went
I know Paris.
You can't have jet lag for a 1 hour time difference. That's like the clock's going back.
Yes, you can. I was tired, busy. And then I pretty much spent most of the weekend decorating as well. Which is actually why I wasn't on the podcast this week. It's not because I was in Paris, it's because I was decorating. But I liked a lot of it, how they kind of expanded who Joel is as a father, bringing in his dad as a character with an interesting touch. Showed Joel kind of stepping up to protect Tommy almost, because apparently his dad was seemingly a drunken abuser. Physical, not sexual, but... And that Joel's...
a very different start to the show.
Yes, but Joel's big motivation seems to be just trying to be a better dad than his dad was. So it is interesting how they kind of have fleshed that out a bit more. I love the scene of him working on Ellie's guitar. Like to explain why it's like kind of one in a kind, that he's put so much effort and love into that. And it's why I've said all the way through this show, the guitar is almost the kind of symbolic link between Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
Where the watch is the symbolic link between Joel and Sarah. It's the guitar for Joel and Ellie.
Absolutely. And your favourite of all the little flashbacks? We obviously had them all merged into one. What was your standout flashback moment?
It probably was the Apollo 15 bit.
Yeah,
I actually don't know what you, Nick, have went for. I haven't had a chance to listen to the ClickerCast from last week. I hope to get it done before last week, for this episode, but I just didn't work out.
So we went with ours from last week, our kind of top picks at the end. It was Pedro Pascal for the scene on the porch, at the end, and the sheer amount of emotion he was able to convey without even really saying, just his nods and agreements to like all the atrocities he did at the hospital, just the confirmation of them and like locking eye contact with Bella Ramsey, and just the sheer emotion he was able to convey across. Also, his little bit in the Apollo 11 capsule when he looks up at Ellie, he's like, "Did I do good?" And he had like that one tear run down his eye in that moment. It was like, he's just such a proud dad moment. So I think that was the performance. For the moment of the week, we went with the museum scene, just the whole, I think, from the dinosaur all the way through to the kind of the spacecraft stuff. And I think that was the best 1-for-1 game adaptation we picked, because it was pretty much 1-for-1. And I said to Nicola, the one biggest thing that really disappointed me in a way was in the behind the scenes stuff when you see them wrapping up the show and they're thanking everyone, and Pedro's obviously finished his scenes for the season, thanking all the cast and crew and the people who work behind the scenes. They are in, the big hall in the museum that has all of the dinosaur skeletons, the Triceratops, the T-Rex, the Velociraptors. They're doing their thanks in that room, and it was never in the show, which means they must have built a whole set for more scenes in the museum. And they jumped straight from the T-Rex straight to the space capsule almost instantly. And it was like, no, that would have been such good, like Jurassic Park references and dad moments of her putting the cap on top of the skeleton and having a laugh about
pushing her in the river.
Yeah, there was so many little bits, which I think culminates in why the seasons felt a little bit rushed at times.
Yes, I feel like now it's complete going into the last episode of the season.
Mm-hmm.
My general impressions of the season as a whole is it should have been 10 episodes to cover the same amount of story. I do feel like the cuts they've made, unfortunately, have brought the season down as a whole.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there was parts that, I know in previous episodes of this show, I've said that the rate and speed in which they got to Seattle felt very rushed. Like all of a sudden, bang, we're outside 8 miles from the city, and it was like, that's supposed to be like a 2-month trek.
You don't mind that bit, but when it's that bit and then there's something else and there's something else and there's something else, and it suddenly starts to feel a bit stripped down, and it's got the Game of Thrones problem. Everyone suddenly has fast travel.
Yeah, absolutely. Fast travel, and they're learning skills that they didn't know previously as well. But we'll get into all that as we go through the show, because this is, of course, the finale, episode 7. So let's get a little bit more into that then. So episode 7, titled Convergence, which we know why if you've watched it. Directed this time by Nina Lopez Corrado, who's not done any episodes before, to my knowledge. She's most famous known for doing The Mentalist. She did a 50+ episode run of that show, but nothing really much else. So for her to get the finale of a huge show like this is an interesting in that Craig and Neil didn't want to take this one on. So the writers are the usual characters, Neil, Haley and Craig, and the music, of course, as standard. The plot for this week's episode is amid the battle between Seattle's warring factions, Ellie's search draws her towards a devastating confrontation. One of many. We have obviously a very short, I think, comprised cast list this week round. It doesn't really venture too much out of the core group. But yeah, Richie, get into this one. Episode 7, this is our finale. We did obviously start straight with the opening credits. We didn't have any kind of pre-credit scene, which we usually do to, I guess the Craig and Neil like to use the pre-credit scene almost like to set the tone and the theme for the episode. I usually find, like we saw it in the flashback on, it was Joel and his dad, and then the whole episode was about that kind of connection piece between father and daughter and such. Nothing.
That's good TV.
Yeah, it kind of dangles that hook ready to get you into the episode. But yeah, what were your overall thoughts on this finale then, without getting into detail?
I think the finale, it's not a bad episode. I don't think there is actually a single bad episode throughout the entire season, but the finale kind of mirrors my issues with the season. It's very abridged. It cuts so much stuff out. Bear in mind, this is Seattle Day 3 in its entirety for Ellie, done in a single episode. And that's a lot of stuff to cover. Yeah. And it feels like they just cut. Yeah. And again, I think, going back to the season, I don't think we saw enough of Abby this season.
Yeah, that was my... I kept every week ticked by, and I think I've brought it up at the very end when we kind of do our summary, is that I really feel like we should have spent more time with her. Other than showing up at the beginning of the show, doing what she did, I thought we would have gone at least back and forth a few more times to kind of just... I get why they do it, and I think this is almost... The problem with this season, and from hearing the official podcast and what we know now, we've seen the finale. I think this season's going to suffer from being the middle part of not a complete story. I think when we see season 3 out, which for all intents and purposes looks like it's going to be all Abby, because I don't know what more of Ellie you would tell. Like
the literal finale.
Yeah. So if season 3 is focusing on that, I think the package in its entirety, I think season 2 will fill that gap. But I do think as a standalone product where we're at now in time and having to wait 2 more years, there's a lot of characters I just really feel like we should have spent more time with. And I think that's where, back to your point, 10 episodes would have given us about another 3 hours to understand their motives. But I think from an overall plot and storytelling point of view, Craig and Neil clearly have this thing in their mind that because of the medium of TV, they can't do it like the game. They can't have you jumping back and forth as much.
But I actually think that's the problem. They did it like the game. They did Seattle 1, 2, 3 with Ellie.
Yeah.
I actually genuinely feel like I've watched the whole thing now, and I watched it with quite an open mind, and now I've seen it in its completion. I feel like what they should have done is expanded Jackson a bit more, expanded the general Seattle a bit more, so that when like the whole scenes of like Dina and Ellie breaking into Seattle, add some stuff from there, and maybe just do day 1 and day 2 of Ellie and Abby, and then cut at the end of day 2, which would literally be the ending of episode 5.
Yeah, and then split the
with Ellie killing Nora
timelines. Yeah,
that's your ending.
Yeah,
and then you start next season with Seattle Day 3, where a lot happens. Yeah, especially for Abby, and then you go on to Santa Monica after. Yeah,
there's a lot of I think time they could have spent building Ellie's character, because seemingly throughout the season. Again, not always comparing one for one for the game, but in the game, she's very much an adapted survivor. She scavenges, she adapts her guns and her weaponry, she hides, she's got lots of stuff. She's very much like Joel in every regard in terms of like her approach to violence and sneaking around people and taking down infected or scars or whoever they may be. And yet in the show, it feels like she's surviving purely based on luck. It's like you're very lucky Dean is with you. And then you're very lucky that you're immune. And then you were very lucky Jesse showed up when he did. And then it just feels like it's a series of events. And then in this episode, we'll get to it in the breakdown. But something happens in this week's episode where she could have just been dead. If it was not for just a random horn going off in the background, she had no way of getting out of that. And yet, this is like the 3rd instance in 7 episodes that she's alive through no tactical like prowess of her own merit. Purely just... she's been helped by others, and she's lucky. And that's not what Ellie's character's supposed to be. She's supposed to be, by now, a hardened killer who's chopped through tons of infected. She's gritty. She's determined for revenge. And that sees her through to do things that you would never expect. And I sometimes think her character in the show, you know what I mean? She's just not got the mettle I was hoping she'd have at this stage. At the end of season 2, she should be a ruthless, badass killer. And she's doing some terrible things, but... you know what I mean? It just doesn't quite feel like it's being portrayed as well enough as I would have expected at this stage.
Yeah, oddly enough, I think one of the biggest wasted characters is Gale. Gale felt like she was getting set up to be that kind of exploration of the darkness of Ellie. And I just don't feel like anything Gale was saying to Tommy about who Ellie is has been shown. Yeah. It's going mirroring what you said, like, she almost feels like she should be a mirror of Joel at this point. Like, really doing some nasty shit.
But she's not.
But we haven't really seen it.
Yeah, she's killed, Nora?
Yeah, yes. And she told you, that's the only thing I can think of for this entire season where I've seen a glimpse of Ellie at her worst. Even the kind of ending of this episode was an accident.
Yeah.
Where in the game it's intentional, and then she finds out the truth.
Yeah, and we'll get into all that breakdown. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I'm similar to you. It was nowhere near as good as season 1, but in terms of the episode, again, great TV. I'm not taking anything away from the episode, but I think as an overall feeling it's left me with, I wanted more instantly, and I hate the fact that we've got a 2-year wait. And I feel like that's where another 3 episodes to maybe just give us a bit more. I would have liked.
Like, it's hard to kind of review this episode standalone because it's...
yeah.
I keep going back to it as a package. As an individual episode, I really enjoyed it, as I have every single episode.
Yeah.
as the whole season packaged, is I feel like hasn't done the game and the material the justice it could have done.
Yeah, I think it's got a part
Not
2
bad,
of 3 issue.
but not great.
Yeah, but should we get into the plot? Because that's what
Yes,
I've
let's
done
do
so
it.
far. Brilliant. Right then, so we had our opening credits. We then cut to the theatre. We overhear Dina's radio, kind of stood alone up on the balcony bit, signalling for the WLF to pull all the boats back, go radio silent ahead of Isaac's plans. And we know what that means, but unfortunately our characters don't hear this message because they're busy dealing with something else, and this is the ramifications of them getting stuck in the park at two episodes back now. Dina obviously got a crossbow bolt through her thigh, I think it was, or a calf. I can't remember whereabouts on her leg she got shot.
Is that fine?
Jesse's obviously not good for Jesse here, not being your typical movie idiot. He knows to push the bolt through rather than tear it out and sever more stuff.
He also, well, I thought it was nice touches. They talked about the artery. He knows where the arteries are, so he knew what he was doing.
He's a smart guy, because it's a big thing to do. But actually, ironically enough, even in the game, if you get shot with a bolt, if you remember, I think you just hold in R1 and Ellie just rips it straight out. Because I think the introduction of the scars, Ellie is going through the park that we're talking about in this episode, and she gets shot in the shoulder, I think, about here. And she hides down. You hear the scars all start whistling, and that's like your introduction to them. And it teaches the mechanic of like, if you get hit with a bolt, just hold an R1 and she just rips it out. And that
you can theoretically snap it and pull it the other way.
Yeah, but
because the reason you meant to push it through is because the arrowhead's designed to not go backwards.
Yeah, I know. You just make it worse. You make the injury worse, don't you? The puncture wound. So Jesse knows to push the bolt through rather than rip it out. Dean is screaming in pain. Even soaked in alcohol, which is again a nice like. That would make total sense. If to cut off infection, you want to get that thing through and then cauterize it, I guess, if you can, is the best you can do, or stitch it up if you've got them. He offers Dina a drink to help with the pain, but she refuses. And again, you can kind of see the next level of, I guess, tactician knowledge that Jesse's working on. We see it when he's out there in the battle, like with a gun and a rifle and stuff out. We see it in the way he processes how he tracked down Ellie and Dina. We see it now in like his medical prowess. This guy is very much, for all intents and purposes, like Jackson's like hero soldier, isn't he? You got Joel, you got Tommy, who are more than capable. You can see why Jesse's kind of next in line for running Jackson.
His character, is very much expanded in the show more than the game, of him being set up to be the next potential leader of Jackson.
Yeah.
That's just not there in the game. He's just another
a friend
guy who just happened. Just another patrol guy who's Ellie's friend.
Yeah. And I do think if they had the time and the money, they would have expanded on that. But again, in TV, it's much easier to just add a couple of lines in than do it in a game.
That's one of them things where that's interesting in TV. It's not interesting in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That might be interesting as a note to read around Jackson or something.
Yeah, absolutely. But he does pick up on Dina refusing to take a drink again. He says to Ellie later on, a girl who's never refused a drink in her life, suddenly turning one down, especially when she's in pain. Like, that would be the best moment to chuck a few back. He removes the bolt, though. We see the bolt kind of sat on the side. But I thought, just a nice introduction to the show, catching up with, again, these two characters who we've not seen now for over a week because of the flashback episode. So, again, it makes sense for the audience to, like, just recap, where are they at, what's going on. We then cut to Ellie arriving in the rain after the events for last week's episode. Jesse lets her in with a quick password, like, what's the name of your horse? She knows that one. Again, one thing that always keeps baffling me in this theatre is how they separate themselves into such large spaces. Like, surely a more compact room where they're not going to get flanked from balconies or windows or doors in this big open space. Like, you know, when they say, like, oh, Dina's back in the dressing room or something. Shouldn't you all be in there? Like, keeping quiet and away from the windows and doors and no lights being emitted from the theatre?
Probably upstairs as well. So if someone does break in downstairs, no immediate trace of you.
Advantage, absolutely. I mean, again, keep saying in the game. Sorry, viewers and listeners, but that's the type of show it is. The balcony, that's where there's a little camp. You find a little camp where two people have been hiding out, and I think one needs antibiotics or something, and you see the little tent in all of their living quarters. So they do it. But yeah, details aside, Jesse lets Ellie in. Straight away, she's like, he asks, where were you? And she just pretty much ignores him and bolts straight for Dina. She's got that kind of look of shock on her face because she's just done what she's done to Nora, so she's just a bit shell-shocked. And then, Ellie heads in, sees Dina, wakes her up with just the brushes her hair aside, and they have like the, oh, hi, I'm back. Again, with Jesse's character, doesn't go after her. like, and say, because again, they've not spoken since Dina got shot and Ellie's just been gone for presumably another half a day.
I didn't mind that. I might be just Jesse clearly just giving a bit of space. She's gone to see Dina. I'm just let them do what.
I know. I think in another world, I expect to just grab by the shoulders and go, "Where the fuck have you been?" Like, seriously, like, don't just walk away from me. I've came and saved your ass. We've not spoke since. Where have you been?
But at this point, it could be perfectly innocent. It could be just a case of she had to move slowly and quietly. She got trapped the other side of them and had to slowly work away.
Yeah.
There could be something perfectly innocent at this point.
Well, she never tells it, but Ellie and Dina have their exchange. Ellie asks if the baby's okay. She says, yeah. She asks, how do you know? And she just does. Like mother's instinct, say it as it is. And then Dina notices like Ellie's shirt's got kind of blood soaking through it at the back. She says, right, turn around. She gets like a bucket and sponge and she starts, gets the magic sponge and starts kind of going through all the injuries, which again, back to my point at the start, where has she really picked these up? Because I'm not going to say that line. I'm not going to say it in the game. Because we haven't really seen her. Like, she had the bit with Nora. But aside from that, she hasn't had any tussles where her back would be scraped and scratched and
I took that from when she got attacked by the stalkers.
That's a fair point.
Because bear in mind that was probably only about an hour before.
Yeah, I think timeline wise, having a 2-week gap in our world, it's probably broken that illusion a little bit. The joys of TV. So yeah, she notices the extent of injury. She starts kind of like healing her a little bit, and then this is where kind of Ellie, I guess, gets into her. She drops her guard at this point with Dina, and unlike Joel, who keeps things bottled up and doesn't talk about them for years, Ellie seemingly her relationship with Dina is like she's an open book, and she tells her straight away. She's like, "Yeah, I made her talk." She said she found Nora. She said 2 words, "whale" and then "wheel." And then she says, "Did she say anything more?" And she points out that Nora was actually infected, and she didn't have long left anyway. So during this moment, we find a couple of details, I think, like a back and forth about their relationship and how like Dina's listening. And then she also explains to her about Joel, right? She goes on to say that actually, Nora, she didn't kill Nora, for one. I think that's, again, I guess important to Ellie's character that she didn't kill Nora. She did everything but.
In the game, it's left ambiguous, but she clearly states that she leaves her.
So I think that's another thing. Like, again, Ellie hasn't killed her. Like,
I don't know which I prefer. I probably think I would prefer Ellie leaving it ambiguous. What happened? Leave the specifics out. Just leaving it to I made her talk, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's all Dina needs to know is that Ellie made her talk.
But she doesn't lie to Dina. She even admits, she says, "I thought it would be harder to do, but it wasn't." She just kept going, didn't she? She kept hurting her until she got what she wanted. And it's a little side note to Nora. Nora's quite resilient at the beginning, wasn't she? She wasn't going to turn down a friend. She knew she was going to die. And it was like, shout out to Nora for sticking by Abby for as long as you could. But then she gives her 2 things in the end. And I kind of wanted to pose the question to you, Richie. Because Nora was infected, and it's like the spores, the airborne infection. We don't know how long it really takes to take hold. We know Eugene in last week's episode was saying he's got like a couple of hours. But maybe the airborne one gets in your system quicker because of just you breathing it in constantly over like a period of time. As Nora's resilience to kind of like not giving up Abby, as she gets infected, do you think your mind weakens to that sort of stuff? It's like if I'm with you for like an hour and your brain is gradually getting corrupted, is your ability to even cognitively defend Abby? Like when you've been asked and hit with a lead pipe over and over again, that's one form of resilience. But I think if your brain is starting to get corrupted by cordyceps and Ellie's like, right, where's Abby? Where's Abby? Do you think at what point your brain just goes, I don't even know who I'm talking to anymore, or what, like, I'm just going to react. And I think Nora was probably that checked out at that point. She just gave away what her brain was capable of.
Yeah, probably. I think the spores theoretically could work quicker because they're immediately in your lungs, and if they're spread throughout your body, where if you get bit in the leg, it's got a bit more to travel. And theoretically, yes, you could lose some inhibition and your ability to control yourself from the infection, similar to drinking. Yeah. Some people become a lot more truthful when they're drinking. Absolutely. They lose that inhibition. So cordyceps could theoretically have similar effects, depending what sort of part of the brain it's acting on first.
I mean, we all know what happens to people who take actual mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
Trippy shit, man. But anyway,
some people put them on pizzas.
Some people do, and pineapple. But we learned some details about Abby's location in the form of the whale and the wheel. We all know what this means. Ellie didn't actually kill Nora, but she does go on to explain to Dina that she knew about Joel. And I think this is where all the pieces have been detailed together. So we know from the flashback episode, the porch scene, that Joel basically openly admitted to all of the atrocities that he did. And Ellie kind of knew that. She'd not made a peace with it, but she was aware of it. She was willing to forgive him. And then Nora kind of filled in a few more gaps here during that episode where she said he shot him in the head. It was a doctor. They were going to make a cure. It was Abby's dad. Nora gave like a lot of exposition to actually what the reasoning behind this whole series has been. And obviously Ellie's now able to put two and two together and kind of recite that back to Dina and say, yeah, everyone was killed in the hospital. Joel knew that, and you can kind of see Dina's reaction, like her eyebrows almost like furrow up a little bit more to that response of like, and you knew about this?
You didn't want to share this information.
Because obviously Dina's followed after Joel's killers under the basis that he was killed without reason, or not what reason, and figuring like that Ellie didn't know that either, but Ellie knowing he did some horrible shit. And let's face it, everything Abby did was justified because they're doing the exact same thing in return now. I think Dina being one step detached from that, her whole assessment of what they're doing is now flipped on a coin almost.
So Dina only knew Joel as like this pillar of the community, basically a father figure to herself. Yeah. Where Ellie's just turned and told you, actually, no, that guy basically doomed humanity and murdered an entire hospital of people just to save my life.
Yeah.
And that is why Abby's done what she did. And while Abby, you can probably argue that Abby's treatment of Joel was unjustified to the extent she went.
Yeah.
Ellie's doing exactly the same thing that Abby was doing. And I think Dina kind of sees that now. It's like, oh.
Yeah. She's like, I thought we were just avenging him. I didn't realize we were avenging a mass murderer who doomed humanity.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic is as they head back to Jackson in season 3, presumably, where Dina and Ellie are going to be at that point, especially because they've lost another friend, which we'll get to at the end of the episode. But like, there's a lot of additional pressure just been added onto their very fledgling relationship. That yes, they're in a great place right now, but the more you learn about some people, all that sunshine and rainbows that you get early on when you're just getting to know people and you fall in love, it's like, oh fuck, like. You're darker than I ever thought. And now we're in this situation where my baby daddy's gone and you've kind of threw me under the bus by dragging me all the way out to Seattle for a vendetta that I'm not so cool with anymore.
This is also where I kind of think the order they've done things. While I've praised the show taking a bit more time to develop Ellie and Dina's relationship by not getting them together in Seattle, this is where it starts to have problems because they've been together for a day.
Yeah.
They've been officially together, maybe 1-2 days at this point? Before, and now Dina's finding out Ellie's just holding on this huge bit of information.
Yeah. It's like, we said no secrets. We said no secrets.
Yeah, and where in the game, I don't think Dina ever finds out about Joel.
No. But
and her and Ellie have also been together for a few months by the time they get to Seattle.
And you would presume that maybe that was discussed off camera as well in the timeline, but... Yeah, because they've almost like fast-tracked it and we are where we are now. There's interesting dynamics to be shared, I think, as the show goes forward. So we'll have to wait until we see that one. But Dina does turn her back to Ellie when she hears this news. She kind of just like condenses it all, doesn't look too best pleased about it, and then just turns away and goes to sleep. Which I know she's tired and injured, but it is more like... Ooh, don't go to sleep on an argument, girls. Don't go to sleep on an argument. Not that it is an argument.
Fucking deal with this tomorrow.
Yeah, and then anyway, we cut to the morning as we see a cold Ellie and Jesse stocking up on supplies. She asks if she's got any more bullets, and he chucks them, and they're just not talking. These two, they're very much like siblings who aren't getting along right now, and they're just giving each other the silent treatment. Dina comes in, presumably in a little bit better mood with Ellie, but even then she doesn't seem in a good mood with either of them. Jesse just saved her life potentially, and she doesn't even really show him any emotion either. She's just like done with all this, I think.
She's still processing everything, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. And she's still in a lot of pain. And I don't know if they give her painkillers or anything, if they have codeine or something in those bags 20 years out of date or whatever it might be. But yeah, she comes in, she gives Ellie a good look wristband, which I think they've mentioned before, right? When they're on the travels. I feel like one of the early episodes might have referenced why Dina wears it. But either way, it gives her a look. Ellie gives her a little jab about it and says, like, it hasn't brought you much luck so far. And she's like, well, I'm alive, aren't I, in this shit show of a world? So, yeah. The Jesse heads out with Ellie. They're going to look for Tommy, basically, at the rendezvous point, find Tommy, and presumably bring him back and track back to Jackson. During the walk through the streets, we then see kind of Jesse explaining how him and Tommy found the two girls, and he kind of just recounts really quickly. Which doesn't seem legit enough for you, Richie. We arrived at the city. We picked the most likely route. We saw the WF sign on the broadcast tower, and then I found the theater. Like, it all feels very in a city covering a many
square blocks. They were searching for like 2 days to find it.
But how did he know to check that? And then not only that, not from the theater. Remember, he then found them in the warehouse with the stalkers. That was another X amount of miles away or something.
But that bit's more believable because they left the bloody maps behind.
Yeah. Shouldn't do that. Shouldn't leave your maps tracking all your movements.
I suppose it is possible if, bear in mind, they're all kind of taught probably how to find shelter when they're out on patrol. So he's literally been trained to when he's in the place and needs to like shelter from the elements or how to find shelter. And he's probably seen the theatre and went, that's where I would hide. And
again, back to Jesse, he's competent. He's able to showcase, actually, I have tracking abilities, I have hunting abilities. I just think because the girls went in the underground subway being chased and then came out on the other end and then found the theatre in the rain, it was like, okay, so he'll have went a different route, no doubt. Otherwise, he was going to find a horde of infected, but trapped in that that spinny doorway.
Well, it's amazing how much of a city you can cover on foot in a few hours, even a fairly large city.
That's true.
So
like Paris.
Literally like Paris.
But yeah, we walk through the streets and we kind of... He does explain that Shimmer's doing okay, not that she asked. Shout out to Shimmer, living her best life in the music store, because I did mention this two episodes back, I think, to you, of like, they're just going to leave her tied up eating grass. And we're okay with that?
I felt that was a bit harsh from Jesse's like...
Not that you asked.
Ellie's got quite a few more things in her mind than how's her horse doing.
Yeah, I mean, she's walking very sheepishly behind him. She's like a child who's been told off, isn't she? She's got her arms tucked in. She's got her head bowed down. She's walking about 2 meters behind him as he's on full patrol. I do want to point out, Richie, and I pointed out in the earlier episode 2, I think, with Dina and Ellie, why the fuck are they walking through the middle of the damn road? There could be snipers, people, infected, runners, anything, and they're just having a casual conversation, walking straight down the middle of the road. Once again, take cover. We said it. Get one of your shoulders against a wall so you've at least got cover, and you're blocked from one side. But no, we're just going to walk down the middle. To Jesse's point, though, about him, how easily he found them and tracked them down, it does kind of foreshadow Abby, because Abby at some point needs to find these people, or as we get to...
I can't actually remember how Abby finds them.
So when the incident in the aquarium happens, Ellie leaves the map on the floor and the blood pools into the map. And the map literally has their theatre HQ. But that doesn't happen.
Oh, right,
Yeah. So as Abby obviously rocks up at Abby rocks up at the theatre and finds the aftermath, that's the one piece of evidence which literally pinpoints where they're at. And you and Lev go and head off. But yeah, so...
Again, Abby being competent.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone but Ellie.
Everyone but Ellie, it seems. But anyway, we get back to Jesse. He gives his first talk to Ellie about, like, Ellie thanks him for saving them, and they kind of acknowledge, like, we're okay. We're still friends at the end. They still they still get along and stuff. I think he's just really, really pissed off of everything she's dragging him through at the moment. Yeah. He references like how her and Dina are looking at each other a little bit different. He brings up the point about her refusing the drink last night. Again, Dina, the girl who's never turned down a drink in her fucking life, and just her overall behaviour. And then he does that again. Such a tactical thinker. He tricks Ellie by guessing about the pregnancy. And says, like, oh, I can't believe she's pregnant, or along those lines. And Ellie's like you see his face change when she says, oh, fuck, how did you know? And then she's like, "Oh shit, you were guessing." And you can see then on Jesse's face, he's like, "Oh." He just took a punt in the dark on that one.
He was just like speculating as why would Dina not have a drink, and that was just one of the things he threw out. And I was like, "Oh shit!" Now, now the entire perspective of what he's currently doing is completely changed now. It's been reframed now.
Yeah,
because he's an expectant father.
Yeah, he's like,
and his pregnant, the mother of his child, pregnant mother of his child, is now in this shit.
Yeah, and he says, doesn't he? He does like a little mini speech of like, I need to survive, Dina needs to survive, so my child can survive, along those lines. Which is like, yeah, he's right. Again, straight into like tactical processing of like, we all need to get back safe. Like, that's his priority. We're not hunting Abby. We're not getting stuck. We're not getting mixed up with other people. We just need to find Tommy and get the hell out of here. Little side note, we do see one of the prophet murals on the wall on like the brickwork that we've seen at the graffiti style. We've seen a couple times. They address it. Different prophet. There's more than one of them. Like, I'm curious to see how this is going to be explored. Yeah, so it was a black woman in the one in this week's episode, but it's always previously been that woman who looks like Hanrahan, like the more gaunt woman, the older woman. So, and Ellie says, I think she says something like, "Oh, there's two of them," and again, Jesse kind of just dismisses it because he's not that focused on that. But to me, I'm like, oh, I thought there is only one. So now, seemingly, the scars have, I guess, like multiple incarnations of the prophet. Who knows?
Maybe
there's many Jesuses out there.
Well, I remember. Did you notice the kind of skywalk in the background?
I did. Yeah, I'm sure that'll come back into play in season 3. But yeah, then either way, the two hear a gunshot, take shelter in like an underground car park, and then we see like a group of WLF soldiers chase a Scar Seraphite. They hunt him down, beat him, hit him in the face. It's actually the soldier. I don't know if you recognize him. He was the soldier who Isaac converted. He's the only one he saved from the van with his like quite narrow face, who went from being like a scared rookie in that episode in the flashback to now he's clearly like one of the WLF's kind of probably key lieutenants or soldiers or something. He hits the guy in the head, and immediately the Seraphite, the young lad, starts kind of like pleading Scar scripture. I believe it's called in the game the Prophet's Prayer. And I quote, says, "The world," he was reciting it really quickly, but "the world is not in balance, but I have done my part to right it. She's led me through the storm. Now I must rest. May the current be the calm. May you guide me home." And you find that in like one of the little collectible notes in the game. But here, this is seemingly like almost like the Lord's Prayer of just like, "Hallowed be thy name," etc., etc.
Yeah.
And he clearly knows his days are numbered now. He's been captured, so he just straight goes into.
He accepts his fate.
Yeah, they hit him. They strip his clothes off him for some reason, which seems like an unnecessary thing
I thought
to
it
do.
was going to get a bit rapey, to be honest.
I mean, wolves do what wolves do.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in this moment, Ellie wants to help, doesn't she? Like, again, doesn't even think about it. She like wants to get up and go, and Jesse has to like hold her back. And then as they kind of like go to drag him away, she literally like a small child trying to get away from holding their parent's hand when they're in a shopping center. She like scrapes her arm away from Jesse, gives him like proper evil look, and says like, "Get the fuck off me." And he's like, he has to like call after her as she goes to head out and say like, Ellie. She's like, "What?" He's like, "I am not dying out here. There are 6 of them, 2 of us. Like, no, you're fucking." And she's like, "Oh, it's just a child." Although I think Bella Ramsey does look a lot younger than this actual boy in question. Yeah. It's just in that moment where it's like she just totally goes in the zone, doesn't she? And like, I get she wants to do the right thing, but it's like
it didn't fit. That's one of the moments where it doesn't feel like Ellie.
It's like, calm the fuck down. You are going to get us all killed here.
I can't. I don't know. Before this season, I couldn't see Ellie doing anything in that situation. I think she would have been doing exactly what Jesse was doing. Yep. Camping out and watching. I mean, she doesn't need to get involved.
It's survival, right? If you go out there, you know fine well that the chance of you dying infinitely increases. Yeah. And I get there's that thing was like, I know, like they do it sometimes in the game, don't they, where they give you situations where you observe something happening with NPCs. There's like a hanging scene, isn't there? Like you can intervene and kill them before the event pops off. But you tend to go like, well, that'll use ammunition, that'll waste my health bandages, then they'll know where I'm at. So I'm just going to stay in the long grass and watch this play out. And that happened here.
Like this is a scene that was written just to give Jesse another chance to tell Ellie off.
Yeah, and she needs
it, and it doesn't. But it doesn't make sense for Ellie to do what she did. this is where it's weird sometimes. I do stand by. I think Bella Ramsey is amazing casting for Ellie. This scene is written a bit weird for me. I just don't know why Ellie would intervene.
Yeah, because you're putting you and Jesse at risk, and then by proxy Dina, and then by proxy Tommy, and then it's like, so what's the point? Like, when is she going to get her head screwed on and understand that the people who you should be protecting are here with you? But this vendetta she's got and the bloodlust she gets, and I know she wants to do something good in this moment, but she doesn't think logically in any situation.
Ellie is. Ellie's not interested in doing good, really. She's interested in killing Abby.
Yeah.
Why she's in Seattle, nothing else matters. At
this midway point, are we at risk of putting too much onus on the game version of Ellie in our biased minds? Because I feel like we're doing a lot of comparison, but it's like, as the show as it stands...
I know we are, but even in the context of the show only, I don't understand Ellie's motivation in this thing.
Yeah, there's a kid getting injured, but she doesn't know him. The risk is insanely high because there's 6 of them and 2 of them. And I feel like...
It doesn't feel like the character who tortured Nora to death the night before would be doing this.
Yeah. Like, you go, hey, leave him alone. Then Ellie gets shot in the head. Jesse, hey, leave her alone. He gets shot in the head. End of the show. Dina's left in the theatre. Tommy's out there on his own. Doom, 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 doom. Anyway, we then jump to Isaac at another Wolf headquarters. This one's inside of a Costco wholesale, apparently. But we've theorised many times when we've been out with our mates drinking, Richie, is that if there was a zombie apocalypse, one of the best places to hold up is in a supermarket. You got shutters, you got lots of stock and inventory, usually big brick walls or something. So we have zombie apocalypse plans. But apparently a Costco is a great place to hold up. We see Isaac and he's seemingly very irritated at the fact that Abby's disappeared, Owen's disappeared, and now Mel's disappeared, all from the same group, conveniently before he's about to hatch his plan of attack against the Scars and Scar Island.
Was it Dawn of the Dead where they're holed up in a shopping mall?
Oh, it's been many years since I've seen that.
Which actually, I'm just looking at it. Directed by Zack Snyder in his directorial debut. This is the 2004 remake. Screenplay by James Gunn.
Ah, full circle.
There you
go. Isaac kind of spells out because he's actually speaking to the lieutenant. I can't remember the name. It's the one whose son was left in the basement. It's the same lieutenant from episode 4, I want to say. Is it Kim? Is it Lieutenant Kim? Can't remember. Either way, Isaac's explaining to her that... Park, yes.
At least Park.
Abby's super important to him because he expects her to lead once he's gone, and most likely all the other leadership prepare. Whatever this attack plan is on Scar Island, he expects to die. He expects most of his soldiers to die. And at this point, I can't help but think, just like, if you've got an army and soldiers and food and stock and dogs and all this, just leave Seattle if they're causing you that much problem. Go and hijack another town, kill off the few clickers, and build a Jackson where it's clearly safer than these crazy cult lunatics who want to gut and hang you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, why are you bothering so? Like, he's got such a vendetta against the Scars. And we'll probably learn about why in season 3. But he spells it out. He's like, Abby is supposed to lead. She is so important. She's heads and both. We've got plenty of Mannies. We've even got a few Owen and Mels. But Abby, she's supposed to be the future. So, yeah. And he doesn't fancy her. They do clarify that. Because she calls him up and says, do you fancy this girl? No, he doesn't. We then cut back to Ellie and Jesse, who've arrived at the rendezvous point in the bookstore, and Tommy's nowhere to be seen. So they have a moment where I guess they're just waiting to see if he arrives. I guess, Tommy and Jesse's plan was to go their separate ways, see if you find the 2 girls, and then come back here tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah.
And we'll take stock and we'll remap our plan from there. Again, tactical thinking, right? 2 veterans.
Split up, cover more ground. But also
always
less likely to get seen walking down the streets.
Yeah. And then meet up when you need to. Ellie kind of explores around the bookstore. She finds a baby book for Dina to take back for the baby. This is where Jesse interjects. He tells her, like, oh, that was a great idea. I wish I'd thought of it. And again, you kind of... And this is where he goes in to explain a little bit about the more, like, the way Ellie loves Dina in a different way. Yeah. The book that she picked up, I did look at this on one of the Easter egg shows. New Rock Stars, again, are brilliant at the breakdown. The book is called The Monster at the End of This Book, starring the lovable fairy Old Grover from Sesame Street. The whole concept of this book, Richie, is... it's Grover, and he's scared that there's a monster at the end of the book. And every time you turn a page, it's like another thing of like, oh, don't worry though, like I'll be your friend, I'll protect you. Like the monster's not going to be that big. And you get to the end of the book, and the monster turns out to be Grover. So he's the monster at the end of the story, and that's such an echo of what Ellie is. Yeah, it's like and that's the one she picked. That's the one she's taken back, and it's like, Ellie, you are the monster in your own story to some degree. So yeah, again, this is the showrunners and stuff just having another layer, like 3D chess move of like, let's put posters up that have these bands, let's pick these songs where the lyrics mean this thing, let's put these books in that have deeper meaning.
I bet you one of the 3 showrunners has this book in their house for their kids.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't even be surprised if it was Neil Druckmann and he was inspired by that book to write The Last of Us.
Yeah, well, he's had I forgot what it's called, but it's not in our show notes, but the book at the end of the show what Abby's reading, it's like Thieves of the City or City of Thieves. That's a real life book by David Benioff, who did Game of Thrones. He was one of the main frontrunners on Game of Thrones. Abby's reading like a different, it's got like a fake name for the in-game name of the book. It's like not City of Thieves, it's like Thief of Cities or something like that. Like they've just flipped the words. By David Ben Ehoff or something. Like they've basically made a play on his word of his name as well. But Neil said that book inspired The Last of Us. So it's like a full HBO Last of Us, Game of Thrones video game.
Bit of a loving
moment, to go around. But Jesse then goes on to explain to Ellie that he needs to survive because of his kid, the way they look at each other, and he wants to get something off his chest that he can deal with. So he can't save the pregnant girl right now. He can't save Tommy. Tommy might be dead. He says he might be dead in the morning, but he can, while he's here with Ellie, he can do this one thing. And he tells a story about some people who came through Jackson a couple of months ago, and he basically had like a 2-week lover's fling with this young girl. He traded stuff with her. He spent time with her. He fell in love with her essentially, and she offered the chance to run away with her and go to Mexico. They were heading to, I think, Canada to Mexico.
Was it New Mexico?
Either way, it's south. It's south and it's warmer. And Ellie says, like, well, why didn't you go? And he goes on to say, like, well, Jackson took me in and raised me, and the people there like trust me, and they're looking for me to protect them. And then Ellie kind of gets this moment of like, oh, I get it. You stayed basically out of duty and honor, but Ellie almost takes it as like a jibe at her of saying like, you don't think like that. Like I'm making decisions in my life to protect those around me because they've helped me and give me so much. Whereas Ellie's very quick to go, nah.
I think Ellie actually took it the right way. This was Jesse for me lecturing Ellie on her decision making and her priorities, and Ellie just pretty much doubled down on fuck community. I watched my community beaten to death in front of me.
That's...
I mean, I was going to put in my own words, but Ellie said it perfectly. So
yeah, we get to that exact part when the here sniper lone gunfire comes across on one of the radios saying like, there's we're pinned down, send reinforcements. So I think they head to like the rooftop to scout it out, and then we all know it's Tommy. Jesse knows it's Tommy, and that's when Ellie's kind of doing scouting through her binoculars, and she sees the whale and the wheel on the Seattle Aquarium. And then straight away she switches back into that like must kill Abby mode, doesn't she? Where, as you said, Jesse's like, dude, we're going to help Tommy. That's what we're doing now. And she's like, she starts trying to reason with him, doesn't she? Go like, no, we don't know it's Tommy. He's like, we do. Like, for all intents and purposes, we know it's a sniper. We know it got pinned down. And she's like, they'll send reinforcements. And Ellie goes, then he'll pin them down. I know what he's like. It's like she's trying to reason so much of like, her priorities immediately switched on that to like Ellie hitting that rage point moment, and then she, as you said, she flips out on Jesse. She's like, "Fuck the community, like you do stuff for everyone. I'm the bad guy, you're the good guy." And I think at this point, Jesse can just say to her like, "I hope you make it."
Yeah,
and they go the separate
ways.
There's nothing
like
he's going for Tommy because that's who he's there for ultimately. He's done his work and he saved Jesse. He saved Ellie and Dina, and then now Ellie's at this point where again it's like she just forgets about Dina. The baby Dina, she's like, Abby's over there, we need to go after Abby. Tommy would want me to go after Abby, and it's just like, let it go. In these moments, let it go.
Yeah. Again, and I think the game, Tommy would probably be right going, yes, I will go, you should go after Abby. TV show Tommy went to Seattle not to kill Abby himself, but to bring Ellie back.
Yeah.
He's a very different character.
Yeah,
but Ellie's talking like Tommy is the character from the game, not the show.
Yeah, it's very different motivations at this point. We then jump to nighttime. The kind of gets dark quite quick in a storm, I'd imagine. And we see Ellie attempt to steal a small boat from a dockside. She's about to shoot two of them. I don't know if you clocked that. She gets a pistol out and aims it. It's like, they're like hundreds of meters away, and you are not a sharpshooter, and that is not a sniper. What are you doing? And then just before she can pull the trigger, we see the kind of spotlights coming on the boats, and you realize, like, there's what, 6, 7 boats here, all with 10 men on each, 10 soldiers. Yeah, and immediately Ellie's like, oh shit.
I kind of got the feeling that she's pulling that gun out. She was debating killing them and waiting for the shot.
Yeah.
But it might have also just been a case of it, just in case one's Abby.
Yeah, true. We see
just to silence them, to give her room to move.
Yeah. We see them all kind of pull away. We see Isaac looking very broody as they head off towards Scar Island to pursue this attack. Ellie does get a boat. She heads out into the stormy seas towards the aquarium. You kind of see it through the thunderstorm. She gets hit by a big, massive wave, ends up washing up on the shores of Scar Island. And just a few things. I think this is the scene of the whole episode that really made me question some of the decisions and like the necessity of the time we're spending in this season. And it was, I don't think in the show, do we know in season 1 if Ellie could swim or not?
I can't remember.
Because you mentioned that they cut the scene out.
I think she made a joke about it in the hotel, but then it's like that she just knee deep.
Yeah, and she says, I can't swim, and that's the point of like at the QZ zone they didn't have swimming pools or swimming lessons because again they're landlocked in Boston. And
but then in the game you have in the flashback from last week, which we mentioned, like Joel pushing her in. That's the moment when you kind of find out, Ellie can swim now.
Yeah, he taught her to swim. He taught her the guitar. Like all these little like father-daughter moments. But yeah, but regardless of being an expert swimmer, Richie, I for one hold my hand up and say if I was in Ellie's situation, I think I would have just drowned.
In the middle of a storm, when it looks freezing cold, yeah, odds aren't good.
With a backpack full of ammo and weapons as well.
And jeans. She's wearing jeans.
Yeah. But either way, how is she not there to decide? This is the one thing that got me from just suspending disbelief. She's heading along the coast, presumably north or whatever, towards the aquarium in the big Ferris wheel. She gets hit with a big wave heading that direction and ends up seemingly the opposite direction, right up a good like half a mile away on the shores of Scar Island. Just from a geographical standpoint, that bugged me a little bit. It felt like she must have been in the water for a good, 15, 20 minutes to be washed all the way that way without being able to swim and redirect herself, even back to the dock. She must have went back past the dock she boarded the boat on to then end up at Scar Island.
Think of is if when she fell in the boat, that was literally the closest piece. When she just got head up, that's the closest piece of land. Just went for it.
Yeah, got a bit disorientated perhaps. And
hit the closest piece of land and take stock.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
So she gets washed up by the big wave on Scar Island, which does happen in the game. You do get knocked off, but then you quickly just swim to the aquarium and finish that last bit off. She rocks up on the beach, and there's some just scary ass kid there in the thunderstorm with his little hood up and his beady eyes pointing out. You hear the Scar whistle. She gets captured by two of the big guys, drags straight over to like a ritual point, which is similar to what we witnessed in the park a few episodes back. She's wrapped up around the neck and the noose. She's strung up, and she says to the kid, she shouts, "I'm saying I'm not like." Clearly, she's absolutely knackered because from whatever she's just had to swim, you would be exhausted from just treading water and fighting off those waves.
Yeah.
So she's obviously got no energy to fight back at this point. She can't even really get her words out, but she does manage. "I'm not a wolf." Tell them to the small kid, and the kid looks at her and does the like gutter symbol and like, "You little shit." But at the same time, like, why would the kid know she's not a wolf? Like, she's like, "I'm not a wolf, tell them." And what's she expecting the kid to say? "I've seen you for all of 5 seconds. I don't know you, random person who washed up on our beach." I just thought that was an odd choice of, like, why would Ellie beg to the child when surely the adults you want to reason with? The second point, Richie, is if you remember a few episodes back when Isaac was torturing one of the scars, and his whole point was like, "One of you wolves every day leaves and comes and joins us. But no one ever goes the other way." And you're like, "Oh, he's got you there, Isaac." How do they recruit people if every time they see them, they string them up and gut them within 10 seconds?
Don't know.
Like, Ellie could have been converted to a scar, but they seemingly don't even give her a chance to talk.
this is the weird thing, especially with like Neil Druckmann being so heavily involved in the show, where it feels like they've expanded on some ideas that have kind of broken the law a bit.
Yeah.
It's like this. We know the Scars do this like ritual disemboweling thing to wolves, but in the game, there's no reference of just people joining the Scars from the wolves.
Yeah.
Maybe the odd one or two.
I think in the notes
people.
there's a few where they leave tips and tricks of saying like, come and join me.
Yeah.
When one of the QZ zones fell, I think a few of them might have left and joined the religious group or something before they were full on cult.
But the way it was portrayed when Isaac was torturing that Scars, it's as if the wolves are bleeding people to the Scars.
Yeah. It's cute.
Which doesn't seem likely.
I'm sure we'll learn more about it in the next season. But Neil Druckmann did actually go on to point out that in the game they did have plans for Ellie to end up on this island and have a whole sequence in the game of exploring it, seeing it from the perspective of Ellie as opposed to just Abby. But naturally, it didn't make the final cut, and it never really got developed on. But this is one of the reasons they wanted to get it in. But yeah, she's captured. The like I said, the string her up. They're just about to disembowel her. The lady gets a big scythe out. And then she's saved by the Horn of Gondor. And this goes back to my point at the beginning of the show, Richie, where Dina saves Ellie, Jesse saves Ellie, and now through just luck alone, our protagonist could have been killed, gutted, disemboweled on an island where no one would ever find her or see her again. But no, she's saved by pure luck. She did nothing in that scenario to help herself out, other than try and beg to a child who didn't know her.
Now, we know what's happening is Isaac's now just attacking Scar Island, which is believable.
Yeah.
But it's one of them. It feels a bit forced, almost like if you'd shown day 1 and day 2 of both sides of Ellie and Abby, and now in season 3, and we're watching this in the full context of that, and we know Abby's on this island as well, and then that happens.
Yeah.
Now you the picture's a bit better.
Yeah.
Well, the whole picture.
I feel like they spent quite a lot of close-ups on the Scar who was going to gut Ellie open, and I feel like flipped to season 3, we're going to get a scene where Abby has some kind of interaction with this woman, and like again in the full scope of things, you're going to be like, so she left Abby and went and found Ellie in that moment, like they were so close to each other, like minutes later, and then the horn pops off in the village, and it's like it is going to make more sense, but I think. At this moment in time, it is just frustrating. Like, what was the point in Ellie's Scar Island adventure? It didn't add anything. She gets on the boat, she heads back off to the aquarium, and nothing's really happened that adds anything to the show. It's there
because it got cut from the game, but they've also cut so much from the game to put into the show that it feels like you're taking stuff that you'd already cut and put it back in for the sake of stuff that you could have left in.
Yeah, just what was the point in Ellie going there? It didn't add anything to it, and also. Being honest, didn't really feel the CGI in this moment. I thought some of the waves and some of the motion movements didn't like the visuals, the storm and stuff looked great, but there were certain movements with the boat, and I think Ellie clearly being like Bella Ramsey being on a green screen, where back to a Game of Thrones point, it was all just too dark for me, and I couldn't really see
the views of darkness to hide some CGI. It feels like a lot of the budget has went on the first few episodes in Jackson.
Yeah, episode 2. Definitely blew a lot of it. So Ellie's adventure to Scar Island ends with this one, and then we finally reach the aquarium. She breaks in through the ceiling window, as we know. She hears some voices talking, and I did want to talk about the voices because you overhear a conversation between Owen and Mel, and they're arguing about something, and I think we're probably going to see the scene play out exactly the same in future seasons. We hear Mel say, "Don't go making me sound like some heartless bitch. I'm not. And be honest, this isn't about them anyways, Owen. What you're talking about, being behind enemy lines all along alone at night, sorry. This is suicide under normal circumstances. You want to do this now? Do you even understand what's going on?" Owen replies, "I understand everything, but I don't have a choice, do I? It's Abby." So, I guess spoilers, but we know anyway. In this moment, Mel's referencing, I think, Yara and Lev, who we'll meet in season 3, saying she's not heartless, and talking about the scars, because we see the sutures and the bandages and the blood as Ellie creeps through the room. Owen's presumably talking about going after Abby because she's disappeared, presumably off of Scar Island. And then this is where the dynamic in season 3 between the love triangle with Owen and Mel and Abby, I think this is all the ramifications of what's happened in those final moments. Owen's clearly in love with Abby still, but he's got Mel. And,
it's a mirror of the Jesse, Ellie, Dina love triangle.
That much it is. And we learn very soon there's an even closer familiarity because Ellie confronts the two of them at gunpoint. I always feel with Ellie in situations, wouldn't you want to listen more? Like, you don't have to reveal yourself to them immediately. Like, just listen and learn more about, like, I do think it's funny when I do think it's funny when she says, they go, I don't know where Abby is. And he's like, you were just fucking talking about her. You can't get away from that one, Owen. I've literally just heard you saying you're going after Abby. So you clearly do know where she is. Owen immediately recognizes Ellie. He's like, oh shit, you're the girl from Jackson. And he just point out to her, like, again, very tactical, says like, oh, remember, I'm the one who let you live. It's like a hostage bargaining situation of like, I'm the guy who saved you last time. Remember, everyone wanted, I think it was Manny wanted to kill her. And he was like, no, we're just here for Joel. And Ellie attempts to use Joel's map trick at this point. From season 1, where like, draw on the map where the person is and I'll get you back. This, again, back to competent levels, this is clearly where she just doesn't have that ability that Joel does to get this point across. Like, she's almost like fumbling her words a little bit. She's in the moment trying to piece together Joel's technique, but she's not
really, as intimidating.
Yeah, she's like, do it slowly. And I think Owen says like, oh, she's just going to kill us both after. And she's like, no, I'm not like you. And she's trying to like almost like, she's not in control. She should be as the one with the gun, but she's obviously out of her depth. She's never interrogated anyone like this before. She's trying to do a trick. But yeah, as you said, she's got them both at gunpoint. Owen and Mel have like a big exchange of eyes. And then, yeah, Owen reaches for his gun. Ellie's quicker on the draw. And boy, I want to say Joel's gun has some bloody kickback to it, doesn't it? It goes clean through Owen's neck, like right through his throat, into the metal locker behind. And then we kind of have that pause, lingering moment. Mel's reaction of like, oh my God. And then the camera kind of pans around and we realize that the bullet also severed, presumably a jugular, like her artery on the side. And I think as an audience, you're like, Ellie, you fucked this situation up like immediately 10 times worse. And then what we don't get in the game, Richie, is this scene kind of panning out, pardon me, very differently. And I guess we'll just go through it quote for quote because it's such an emotional scene. Mel like reacts, oh God, rather than like blame Ellie or say what she's done, she's just immediately says, knife, have you got a knife? I have like 30 seconds. And then Ellie realizes, we realize as an audience, Mel's pregnant. And back to your point about the love triangle, Mel is Dina in this situation, essentially. She's pregnant, but she's also a doctor. And I love this, that she doesn't like react to like, I've just been shot, I'm going to die. Her immediate thought as a mother is, my child.
Save the child.
Like, save the child. Like, she tells Ellie, you're going to take it out. Make one incision. That's all. Be sure to tie the cord. And I think in this moment, she asks Ellie, like, have you got a knife? And I didn't realize in the moment, but after the fact, listened to a few of the shows, Ellie's knife, it's the one that her mother gave her, that her mother used to cut Ellie's cord at the beginning of all of this. So that kind of like visualization and that echoing sentiments of like, yeah, this knife literally saved her.
It's meant to bring
infected.
Life, not take it.
Yeah, it's protected her and she's had it this whole time. She's killed infected with it. And Ellie's like, how deep? I don't know. Mel's like, at this point, like Mel's bleeding out and she's gone into, I guess, her brain's shutting down, but she's still trying to remember like core things to get across in like those survival moments. Deeper than you think. She's whispering now, like deeper than you think. Low transverse. And you can, Ellie's like, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean? Quieter. You're doing good. Is it out? And then Mel's gone. And you can kind of see the moment of the breakdown of like Ellie just, I think she's absolutely just struck with fear.
She bottled it. She bottled that situation. Like, it's, as Mel says, it's one incision. Even if you're not 100% sure, you make an attempt in that situation, don't you?
So this is what my wife said. My wife was saying, like, just try. Like, she's practically screaming at the TV, just try. And I think you and me will never understand because we're not women and we won't go through that. And my wife was given birth and carried a child to labour. Absolutely different thought process for thinking. after I thought on this for a little while, my thing, I think, which we've gone back to a couple of times over the series, about Ellie and Dina's understanding about babies and pregnancy. Like, is Jackson teaching them about the inner workings of it? And I think Ellie, at this point, she's a 19-year-old girl who's just accidentally murdered 2 people without the intent to do it. And now within, 30 seconds, she's been expected to cut into another human being and presumably end up with a child. And I think she's just, at this moment, as a 19-year-old, I think she's just utterly frozen with fear. I think she's panicked. She, like a rabbit in the headlights, she just shuts down and can do nothing but cry, essentially. And I think that, as much as I think you're saying, I think we've all had those moments in our life when we were younger, where we just get struck and we can't move. Whether it's like, when you've done something wrong and your dad catches you, and that moment where you go, oh shit, I'm in trouble, and you just can't. Do I run for the door? Do I go for the window? Do I hide under my bed? And you just freeze and you just can't do it. And I think that's exactly what happens in this moment. And like, it's such a good, like, it's a good scene and a horrific scene at the same time. Like, Mel's performance, I think is outstanding. And I think this being a totally new way to introduce it, because you and me are familiar with Ellie has a tussle with Owen. She ends up shooting him in the stomach. He falls down. Mel dives in. She has a tussle with Mel. She ends up stabbing Mel in the neck. And then she goes over to Owen for information while he's bleeding out, and she sticks the gun in his neck and says, like, tell me where Abby is. And he kind of manages to just get out the words of she's pregnant, and then he dies. Ellie runs over, opens up Mel's coat and finds that there's a bump, and that's when she goes into that ear ringing mode of like, you can't hear anything, and she's shutting down. And then Tommy comes in and saves her from that moment. But yeah, I thought the show told it in a very different way, but it almost hit home twice as hard for me, seeing again Mel just go into utter save the child mode while inevitably bleeding out. And I'm so glad, Rich. I know Game of Thrones, House of Dragon. I don't know if you've watched House of Dragon yet.
I have, yeah.
They did scenes similar with C-sections and everything.
Yeah.
And it was quite uncomfortable viewing. And what I'm really glad here is, in a way, that Ellie didn't attempt it, because I did not need to see any of that. I don't think on TV there's a line where you draw with certain things, and I think, I think it worked. Like, you could imagine they've had conversations of like, do we show the fetus getting pulled out, and Tommy has to find Ellie with a dead fetus child baby. Like,
I
the
think
trauma from that would be horrific.
As a viewer, I was like, just fucking give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
The situation can't be worse by your any attempt.
Yeah.
Like, you literally can't. Like, you do nothing, that they're both dead.
Yeah.
You do something, the baby could survive.
And
they're the choices.
Yeah. And in this situation,
but that's a very rational point of view from someone who hasn't just accidentally murdered 2 people and now has to perform an emergency C-section.
And I hope you're never in that situation, Richie. I hope it never.
Yes, I hope so too.
And I mean, even that, like, if it's just the long-term thing, like, if the child survived, how do you feed it? Mother's gone.
You got two fresh corpses, I suppose.
I don't think they eat human flesh. But all things aside, I'm glad.
You're dead. I'm not.
I'm glad they didn't go there in a way. But then the ramifications of this, obviously, we know now. I'd love to talk to people who've not played the game and just get their impressions on, like, how do you not hate Ellie now? Because she's not only killed people who didn't deserve it in a way, she's killed an innocent child. And I'd imagine that resonates with a lot of parents, a lot of mothers out there. And if you've not played the game, you're just like, she's gone too far now. Like, it's all well and good saying she's got a vendetta against Abby and these people are involved, but when I think an innocent child comes into it who hasn't even had a chance of life yet, that's a way step too far for vengeance in my book, and probably a lot of people's.
I still almost feel, though, they've played Ellie too safe. Like, there's a few key decisions where Ellie makes the wrong choice. But Ellie overall seems like she wants to do good.
Yeah.
Well,
she's like Joel. She's a good person at her core, but through survival and situations, she's brutal.
I feel like at this point, it should be very clear, though, that she isn't a good person.
Yeah.
As much as she might want to be, that she just isn't.
Well, that's why I guess Abby's side of the story is going to be very interesting to see, because Abby's seemingly a better person than Ellie. Like, she only killed Joel because he killed her dad. And
you're meant to grow to hate Ellie and grow to like Abby throughout the game.
But either way, they didn't do it. I guess the visual limitations of shock what you're allowed to do on TV. Remember when we were kids growing up and they couldn't even do like a lesbian kissing scene on TV? True. And now we have such horrific things being shown on on mainstream TV. But yeah, Tommy comes in and Jesse, the finder, and I guess he takes her away from that. We end up back at the theatre. Everyone's seemingly better. We don't know where Dean is, actually somewhere in the theatre. Tommy, Jesse, and Ellie are talking. There's clearly a bit of unrest still. Jesse's not really talking to Ellie. Tommy attempts to, I guess, quell Ellie's unrest. He says they were part of it too. They made their choices. That's all there is to it. Which again, in my head, I'm just like, the baby didn't make its choice, Tommy.
Yeah.
And yet, that's all there is to it. Well, obviously, he's just trying to give Ellie words of comfort in a horrific situation.
Yeah.
Which you would, right? Like, again, I know Tommy's not a parental figure, but he's I guess, her uncle.
He is now.
Even when kids do stuff wrong, as a parent or a family relative, you're always going to try and ease the pain of it a little bit and say, look, it's not crazy. You didn't mean to do it.
Going back to the early episode, Tommy does feel like a parental figure for Ellie because since Joel's died, that was kind of the gist of his conversation with Gail.
Yeah. And he
so yeah, he would look at Ellie now as it's his niece.
Yeah. He does ask Ellie, says, are you going to be able to make your peace with Abby being alive? Because Ellie's like, but Abby gets to live. And it's like, how have you just done all this? And you still sit on the edge of this stage and go, yeah, but Abby gets to live. And he's like, and are you going to be able to make peace with that? And she's like, I guess I have to. It's like, oh.
I suppose in some ways she's come so far. She's done so much horrendous shit.
Mm-hmm.
It must be weird to walk away without completing it after doing that. It almost would. I suppose when you go in that dark and that deep into that darkness, you're almost probably hoping that once you've accomplished it, you can put it aside.
Yeah, like will all of the other deaths leading up to Abby be paid off when you reach Abby? But it's very much the case of in for a penny, in for a pound with Ellie at this point. Yeah. She's committed to this bit. Tommy heads off to the fire to pack their stuff up in the duffel bags. Ellie and Jesse have a moment of, I guess, consolidation where he's kind of, again, they're still friends, aren't they? It's that thing where it's like, look, all about community and stuff. Jesse says, like, oh, in hindsight, you would set the world on fire to save me, and I understand that, and that's what you're doing for Joel, that's what you would do for Dean, and that's what you would do for Tommy. So he's like, he doesn't do it the same way she does, but he gets it.
That's how the way of like showing community is to do whatever it takes, even if it's not necessarily the right thing to do. Yeah,
it's the kind of same version of like she means well, she just doesn't do it the same way you would. But the intention's there, her heart's in it as such. We hear a noise come up from the foyer. They run to help Tommy. Bursting through the double doors, Jesse doesn't even get a moment to react before being shot in the head and instantly killed. Ellie takes cover behind the reception desk before Abby calls her out, says, get out here. Tommy's on the floor, held at gunpoint. Jesse's in a bloody pile with his head all over the place. I feel like in this episode, Jesse definitely foreshadowed his death way too many times of like, I need to get back. I'm not going to die here today. I will survive. And then,
again, I go back to that scene where Ellie wanted to just get up and just save that kid. You could just cut that scene, and I think the ending lands better.
Yeah, without him telegraphing it so much. Yeah. Again, Caitlin Deaver, we've not seen her for 4-5 weeks at this point of content, but she's back and she means business. And yeah, she nails the line as well. It was almost like 1-for-1 from the game. Like very emotional on her face. I let you live and you wasted it. And then she turns the gun to Ellie. We get Ellie saying, no, absolute panic. Cut to black with the sound of a gunshot ringing. And then that's almost where we would leave it. However, we cut to Abby being woken up by Manny. She's reading that book I mentioned earlier on, The City of Thieves or The Thief of Cities or something. To tell Isaac, tells her Isaac wants to see her immediately. She gets up, needs 5 minutes. She walks out and onto a balcony where we get the reveal of the big WLF HQ which is amazing. It's the big NFL stadium that's been basically converted into a castle at this stage. It's got agriculture, it's got wind farms, it's got training facilities, it's got an arsenal. It's got pretty much everything you would need in like a castle to survive an onslaught or an attack. And then the keywords pop up: Seattle, day one. Boom. We are right back at the start of the series, pretty much, but with Abby instead of Ellie. And I guess there's a few things to dissect into there, Richie. The final moments in the theatre pretty much played out one for one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Expected. Did you expect this to be the season finale? This is where we're going to end it?
No, to be honest. I think I kind of did once I realised that this episode was going to cover pretty much the entirety of Seattle Day 3 for Ellie. Because going into the episode, me and Nat were talking about where's the logical end point for this episode. Because I think the smart end point for the season was at the start of the episode when Ellie comes back to the theatre. That I almost feel like they could have left it at the point where episode 5 ends.
Yeah.
And then you start then season 3 with Seattle Day 3. So since you've missed that end point and you haven't done anything with Abby throughout the entire season, it kind of has to be this point.
Yeah, bringing her back in at the end to just have that quick line.
Yeah.
It's almost like, oh yeah, you're the person who killed Joel. We've not seen you in so long.
We've seen more of Isaac.
We've seen more of Pedro, and he's been dead.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have seen more of Isaac as well. So we need to address, I guess, a few things that happen in that scene. In R.I.P. Jesse, poor guy, Captain Wyoming, didn't want to die, and he was the one with, I guess, all the best intentions to just get back and raise his child with Dina together. It's in a way as well, he died without really knowing what the dynamic was going to be. Like, he knew Dina and Ellie had a relationship, but I don't think he knew to the extent that they'd be raising the child, I guess, from Dina and Ellie's perspective, as like a couple, like a throuple.
I think he did when he saw the scene with when Ellie picks out a book. I think if he didn't know before then, I think he knew then that the three of them were going to be raising a child, Ellie and Dina as a couple, and him as the dad.
And this adds to the point of like,
which is probably why he tried to make amends with Ellie.
Yeah. Why did he run through the door straight away? Like, of all the things he's done logically and tactically, bursting through the door, one mistake.
He heard shouting and he just moved.
Yeah. And it was Tommy as well.
Yeah.
The other thing is, in this scene, because we know this is Seattle Day 3, essentially. Don't know if you noticed, Abby's character has a rope mark around her neck.
I didn't notice that.
So something's happened in the build-up to Abby arriving at the theatre where she's been hung. Or had a rope tied around her neck, presumably. Yeah. Now, we know from the game why that is, but it was a nice little detail, which I think if they missed it, it would have been called out next season when the events
when it's suddenly edited in.
And they're like, hang on a minute, if she had a rope around her neck, wouldn't there be marks in the theatre? Well, there was. They thought about that. So it's
a weird one. It almost feels like they should have shot these two seasons back to back, but season 3 hadn't been greenlit when season 2.
Yeah,
it got greenlit during it wasn't after the first episode.
It wasn't far. Yeah, it wasn't far between the premiere. So I think
it does feel like one of them. In an ideal world, season 2 and 3 are greenlit at the same time and shot back to back.
Yeah, and then I guess the final one is Ellie. No. Gunshot cut to black. Did she shoot Ellie? Did Dina burst in the room? Because she's somewhere in this theatre just hanging around. And I guess for you and me, where's Lev? Because he should be in this scene somewhere. Has he got Dina? Is he with Dina? Is he just off shot in the other part of the room that we can't see on camera?
Who knows?
Because in the game, if you remember, Lev keeps his arrow trained on Tommy, and that's why Abby's able to aim the gun at Ellie. But yeah, it's such a cliffhanger. Like, if we do have to wait 2 years, and if you haven't played the game,
it is a good ending for the season. To be fair, after all, I'm kind of down on the season as a whole. This is actually a very good ending. Like, I think it probably was the right choice to skip the Seattle Day 1 for Abby before ending it. Because now, because the way they've decided to tell it exactly as they have in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle day 1 to 3 for Ellie. Seattle day 1 to 3 for Abby.
Yeah.
So to go back and go, right, it's almost I'm going, next season is Abby focused.
Yeah, and I'm
You've
looking
seen Ellie's
forward to
bit,
it.
now you're going to see it. Yeah, me too.
I think now all the convolutions out the way, we can go back and almost have all these moments of seeing it, like Back to the Future, where you get to see it all play out from the different perspective. Like, so this was that moment, and what's just happening now is that's what happened in episode 3 of season 2. It's like, right, and you can your brain's going to find a really satisfying moment of piecing all those together, and as an audience member of who's where, when, and why the events led up to that. And Abby and Ellie were so close at one point, and they almost converged, and then they went off and did different things that led up to the theatre moment. So very interesting. Wasn't overly keen on the cut to Soundgarden playing at the end. I felt like it was quite jarring to go from the big build-up and the crescendo of music of like, he's Wolf headquarters, this is Abby's story, Seattle day 1, dun dun dun, and then it went into a Soundgarden rock song. It was quite, I think it happened in Game of Thrones once or twice, where you had like quite a somber moment, and then it cut to like a modern day rock music, and it was like, you've kind of took me right out of the. I don't know if that struck a chord with you at all, or.
Nah, I didn't really notice it that much, to be honest. It was just, I don't know the song, so I feel like it probably is symbolic, probably for
there's
Abby,
no doubt
the
lyrics.
song's called the song's called "Burden in My Hand."
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like maybe this is going to be the theme of Abby, how she's dealing with the burden of potentially being the next leader of the WLF and everything that means.
Yeah. And again, shout out to Soundgarden, because Chris Cornell and stuff are fantastic. But all that aside, we have our season finale. We've got more characters dead than I'm sure some people expected. Some characters not dead who others might have expected. And some things happened, some things didn't. Just to get into, I guess, some overall season 2 thoughts before we get to our final performances and predictions. There's a little bit of stuff online which I think is kind of plagued this whole season, and it's been so surreal, and we've not really addressed it, but I think since we're going to take a 2-year hiatus, we might as well talk about it a little bit. The whole stuff with Bella Ramsey online, and again the timeline of the way this panned out is, if you recall, the script and the story for Last of Us Part 2 leaked about a month prior to the game coming out. Internet got hold of it, Reddit got hold of it, everyone learned that they were going to kill off Joel. So before the game even came out, everyone hated Abby without the context of why, because they killed the protagonist who everyone loved playing in the game. Joel was everyone's hero. We all know that. You got to play as him for 40 hours in a game. And gamers and the internet and whoever these people are, they kind of took that and ran. And The Last of Us Part 2 almost had like this weird shadow hanging over it on release, where it reviewed great, but sales weren't as good, and the general reception seemed to have this, because everyone knew the plot. It's like the plot of a movie coming out. It's like the plot of Endgame leaking before everyone got to see it.
At the time, I remember thinking, I find it weird that people would read spoilers online and go, "Oh, the game does what I read online. It's not as fun." It's like, well, you spoiled it for your fucking self by reading them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in a weird way, then people hated Abby's character to a point where the poor girl who played mocap for her got like death threats or something, which is obscene. But then now we're seeing that flip to season 2 of the show. I don't recall Bella Ramsey, when we did ClickerCast season 1, getting any shit other than her performances were amazing. And the whole show was fantastic. Best viewership ever, better than Game of Thrones numbers. And then now we've reached season 2. It's almost like the shadow of part 2 of the game has moved on to the show, where people went into season 2 knowing the Abby thing was coming, knowing Pedro Pascal was going to leave us. But that hate doesn't seem to have landed with Caitlin, Deva, and Abby. It seems to have fell on Ellie and Bella's shoulders in this weird roundabout way now.
Yeah, I think I've bemoaned in this episode, not necessarily Bella Ramsey's portrayal, but some of the writing decisions. And I think that actually does strengthen people who just don't like Bella Ramsey. Some people straight up did not like Bella Ramsey because she doesn't look like Ellie. Yeah. And then people just need to fuck off and get over it. Yeah. Because she is an incredibly talented actress, and I do not have any issue with her performance. No. And I just feel like there's some weird writing choices that kind of like, I don't understand why this character would do that.
Yeah. which is fair. Yeah,
that's me having been critical of the writing, not of the actress.
Yeah. I think every character in the show and every actor and actress in the show has done a phenomenal job. I think their performance, it's premium TV. You won't get any better TV in this year, most likely.
Basically, every single week we have struggled to pick a best performance of the week because that's how good the talent on display is.
Yeah, but all that said and done, I'm kind of I got this weird feeling now where we're going to get to season 3. Caitlin Deva, don't know how you pronounce it, is going to be front and center of season 3. The story's going to be about her. We're going to spend a lot more time with her, possibly more time than we spent this season with Ellie. We'll get to know all of her friends, Owen, Mel, Manny, and such, and a bit more of Isaac, no doubt. I have this weird feeling that come season 3, in a roundabout way, what Neil Druckmann intended, that I think everyone's going to absolutely love Abby and Caitlin Dever's performance and her character, and Bella Ramsey and Ellie's character. Just like in the game, you're supposed to realize that they're either both the same people, or Abby is the good guy and Ellie's actually the bad guy in her story. And I think
they both walk the same path, but Abby's further ahead in that path.
Yeah. And I guess in a way, there's a bit more justice to Abby's story. And we're not going to get into it because that's season 3 and 4. But it's just this weird roundabout way of like all this shit and scripts leak and internet culture and all that kind of stuff is going to boil down to everyone in the game world hated Abby. And yet in the show, I think everyone's going to hate Ellie and love Abby, which is a complete flip of the coin. And it's all down to do with like weird stuff that goes on. But interesting.
I think everyone hates... A lot of people on the internet hate Ellie because she's not the same Ellie from the games.
Yeah.
And I think they're going to... But now, I think the dust has settled on the hatred of Abby, where people now actually have settled down, actually understand the story a bit better than the initial spoilers where they were outraged on the internet.
Yeah.
So now when Caitlin Dever has a good performance as Abby, which... based on how little we've seen her this season, I think she absolutely will nail it.
Yeah, me too.
I think you're right there. I think they are going to love her portrayal because I feel like it might be closer to Abby in the game, despite the difference in looks, which I have seen people comment on. And again, get over that shit.
Yeah, they're not real. One thing I think they do need to address, and I saw this picked up a few times, is the last 2 episodes of the show, no infected at all. No. And it goes whether it's budgetary or writing, and I get they want to be like, actually in an apocalypse, humans are the worst things you can encounter. But for a show about cordyceps and infected and spores and bloaters and hordes, I feel like we're spending a lot of time walking through a massive city like Seattle and encountering nothing.
It's this season's just too short for me. That's the main problem. It does feel I'm getting very, very end of Game of Thrones vibes where they're rushing. I feel like they're rushing through the content. Where if they just took the time, they could have left some more of the infected in, and then with having a better thing. It could be a budgetary thing because I have talked on the official podcast about how difficult it is.
Yeah.
To bring things like the clickers to life, and sometimes for seconds. I think it's a subway scene I'm thinking of where some of them clickers were in makeup for literal hours, like 4 or 5 hours, for about 15 seconds of screen time.
Yeah,
that's an expensive, long-winded process.
Yeah,
but when it comes to it, this is effectively a zombie movie that we're watching play out. You need your infected there.
You need a reminder of that constant threat, don't you? Like, they don't just hide away at nighttime or disappear. And I think The Walking Dead suffered from this as well, where the walkers essentially became secondary, where people could kill them so easily by like season 4 or 5, where it's like they weren't even an issue. In season 1 you encountered 1 or 2 and it was terrifying and the threat to life was real, but then by season 3 and 4 you encountered like 20 of them at a time, like, oh, we can take these out, screwdriver, knife, machete, gun, dun, cleared out in seconds. It's like, wow, you guys are efficient.
I know you've joked about people walking around in the middle of, or like just walking down talking loudly in the middle of streets, but it does feel like these people who are seasoned survivors are a bit too relaxed in the situation.
It's too easy.
They're in a war zone between these two factions that they have very little information about, and they know they should be suspecting Seattle's riddled with infected.
Yeah. Like,
Yet they seem to just be very casual about it.
well, where did Joel and Ellie get to in season 1 when they got ambushed by the group of raiders? And like, he didn't even want to drive through the city, remember? He wanted to go on the outskirts, and he had to take a detour because the road was blocked off. And they went on edge the whole time. Then they met Sam and Henry, and they got shit. And it was like the whole thing was tense and claustrophobic. And
Kansas City. Ellie should be remembering Kansas City.
Yeah, and the infected were underground.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like, it needs more infected, or at least touches of infected, where it wouldn't have hurt in the moment, maybe like Jesse and Ellie, or Dina and Ellie in earlier episodes were going down the street, and there was like maybe one in a shop window who they had to just kill and be like, oh shit, that scared the shit out of me, and then move on.
There's a scene in the game where, on Seattle Day 3, where Ellie is in the boat going down the river, and you can get out and you can explore, and there's like snipers and stuff, and there's infected. Yeah. It would be nice to kind of see that kind of freeway struggle of Ellie trying to get round these people, sneak past, kill a few people. Yeah. Like, escape the infected. Like, be absolutely ruthless. Do something to draw the infected. Use the classic bottle trick that you always use, where you chuck the bottle near the soldiers and the infected run at them. Yeah. See Ellie in the show do that, so you can see this ruthless streak in there. Yeah. And then you're getting this character development through the action.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they cut all of that.
Yeah, it did boil down to it. So hopefully, again, they'll take these things like, and remember from season 1, they did a lot to season 2 as well. So we shall see them. Looking ahead then, Richie, as we start to wind down this week's show, season 3, I've said about like the focus switch to Abby. I'm guessing we're going to get no more Pedro Pascal, because all his scenes, for all intents and purposes, are used up now. I feel like we know Joel and Ellie's relationship. Any more scenes will just be fan service, I feel like, at this point. I don't think we need to see any more of that story. Almost to a point where, for me, I'm quite content that Ellie's story, as you said, right up until that moment in the theatre, it's told. So season 3 should very much be focusing on just Abby, Manny, Owen, Mel, the wolf, the scars, the dynamic between them in Seattle. And I think looking ahead beyond that to season 4, I think season 4 is going to be like the California section. Totally colour palette switch, get to a warm destination, ditch the rain. And I think 2 seasons of rainy and moody and wet Seattle, I think everyone will be ready for a palette cleanse at that point, as we pivot back to, no doubt, Ellie at some point. But yeah, I think season 3 is lined up, the runway is lined up for just Abby and her crew through and through. And I feel okay about that. I don't mind it. Because of what we've had this season, I think we're ready. What do you think?
I think you're right. I still think I would prefer the blend between Abby and Ellie, because you do get the kind of shock moment at the end, which you get in the game, where suddenly Abby bursts into the theater. It's like, oh shit. Like, you get that. It's Ellie hasn't found Abby, Abby's found Ellie. Yeah. And now you're curious about how. Yeah, and now you're curious about how that happens. So you do get that. But yeah, I think next season is probably going to focus. This is the problem where it's going to be 2 years potentially, because now you're going to have 2 years to wait, and then you're going to have the majority of a season focused on Abby before it probably has to switch back to Ellie to finish things off.
Yeah, it's because, and again, they're going to have to spend episode 1 reminding everyone where everyone's at. Like we got with Jackson.
They might not have to be honest. They could actually just be brave and go, you know what, people are going to rewatch it. We're not going to waste time. Stuff like that.
Yeah. But when you sit down,
they didn't waste a lot of time. Yeah, they didn't waste a lot of time in this and the first episode of this season recapping.
But it did all feel rushed, as Maker of Chaos says in the chat. Yeah, definitely feel like this season should have been extended with more moments exploring the city, have some more conversations between Jesse and Dina a bit more. Because, they didn't even speak, did they? No, once we're in Seattle, like, he saved them. He told her to be quiet as he got the crossbow bolt out, and that was it. And then he's dead. So, yeah, they definitely could have had another 3 episodes for me. But we'll have to wait. Hopefully not too long. I'd like to think the way they've panned this out, but it is a shame they didn't shoot back-to-back Lord of the Rings style and get this out in one go. Richie, we do like to end every show with our performance moment and best game adaptation of the week. Where are you leaning at for the best performance to round out season 2 of The Last of Us?
I think I agree with you. It's the baby scene.
the baby
with
scene.
Mel specifically.
Yeah.
Bara.
Yeah. I think
Ariella, sorry.
Ariella. Yeah, I'd say that. I think there's a lot of strong performances. Once again, I think the writing hasn't been as strong, but I think the actors and actresses performing their roles and their characters. I think Bella Ramsey did a great job in all of her scenes to kind of convey that emotion, that innocence, and the absolute shock of what happened in the baby scene in the aquarium.
Jesse was very strong in this episode as well. Actually.
He was, yeah. The only thing with Jesse, I feel like he never got his monologue moment, like to show emotion. Like he was great at telling Ellie off and having his moment of kind of like honor and loyalty and stuff, but I don't feel like it's been anywhere near as emotional as the other characters have had to do. And that's just a credit to how high the bar is. Yeah, exactly.
That is just the character though. So I think young Mazzino did portray Jesse perfectly.
To a T. And in terms of this week, though, I just think for as little as words Mel's got in the show, we've seen her in the Joel scene. She wasn't too keen on being there. She only had a couple of lines of dialogue. And then to get her in this one moment to have to show, even just as an actress, we've said it time and time again, but to convey the emotion of saving your child, being a doctor, faking dying at the same time, and play all that off another actress in a moment like that, I don't even know how you would fake that those heightened levels of emotion that she does. And she controls her breathing, and just everything about her feels so like you're drawn in that moment, right? Your eyes are fixed on the screen. You brought right in. I think Ariella Barrera did a terrific job for that one. So yeah, performance of the week for me on that one. Agreed. What about moment of the week?
I'm not sure here because it's so fast, this episode. I'm
leaning towards just the finale, just because like shit pops off. Like, can you get a bigger moment than that cliffhanger ending?
No, I don't think you can. I think that is it, the finale.
Like, again, take what we know out of it and our preconceptions and bias. If you're watching this show, you're watching it week to week to week, maybe with your partner, maybe on your own, whatever, knowing nothing that you know, all of a sudden you think everyone's safe, we're rounding out the season, everyone's back at the home, we've Ellie's done some horrific things, but then to go straight into I don't know, I'm thinking as a normal audience member, you must be thinking, right, Ellie's done some shit, that's the end of the season, Ellie's done some horrific stuff and we're going to pick up in season 3 where that is. And then you hear a little scuffle in the back room, and all of a sudden, Jesse's dead, Tommy's on the floor, Abby's showed up, and we haven't seen her for 5 weeks. She got Ellie at gunpoint. We get a gunshot, and then it cuts to black. Like, that must leave you as a non-game player being like, what, is Ellie dead? Is Tommy dead? What, is Jesse really dead that quickly? Like, he was going to survive and be a dad and all this stuff, and you're just like left going, now I have to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just everything heightened. Cool, in agreement. Final one, best game adaptation of the week. Was it the theatre shootout as well? Was it the...
Yeah, I think so.
Because the baby scene wasn't 1-for-1, so I don't think we can give it to that because it was very... Like, for the better, I felt it was much different, but heightened. Yeah, what else do we really have for this week? There's stuff around the Scar Island and stuff. The aquarium, I feel like we could have spent a lot more time.
The aquarium... Basically, Ellie turns up and then she walks into the room.
Yeah.
You don't get to see the aquarium, you don't explore it.
Yeah, we get like a couple of jellyfish hanging down from the ceiling and that. But, I mean, shout out to Alice. Shout out Alice and Shimmer. Both survived. Yeah. Because that was my worry. I did notice on the official podcast, Craig Mazin, obviously famous for directing Chernobyl as well, actively said like he's not allowed to kill any more animals because there's a scene, I don't know if you've seen Chernobyl, definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend it. It's some of the best TV ever, on the level of Last of Us and Game of Thrones stuff as well. It's HBO too. There's a scene in that where after the incident of Chernobyl happens and there's all the local, like obviously everyone had to leave the city due to the radiation, but they left the pets, and the pets also carried the radiation, so they had to send people in killed the stray dogs off, and TV audiences did not sit well with killing loads of innocent dogs.
Yeah,
even though they were highly irradiated, it had to be done to help cut back the spread. But yeah, Craig was like, I can't kill more animals on TV after doing that show. So yeah, Alice survives for now. Shout out to Alice, and Shimmer survive an explosion as well. So
yeah, I think Shimmer, the opportunity to kill off Shimmer passed when they decided to cut that entire basically that section before you get into at the when you cut that, then Shimmer survives, and you know what? It kind of makes sense that now she has Shimmer to get back to Jackson with.
I mean, if you wanted an audience to hate Ellie, let her kill a dog. That'll do it.
Yeah. So. And then the killing the dog, I don't think it would add anything unless you really wanted to show how ruthless Ellie is.
Yeah. So Alice is safe for now. Hopefully we'll see her in season 3. We did see Alice in Wonderland in the bookstore. We didn't really touch on it, but there was the whole motif of one of the quotes from Alice in Wonderland where, let's face it, Abby and Ellie and everyone involved in the show has gone too far down the rabbit hole now, just like Alice did. And they're in a world of craziness. But Richie, that does bring us to an end of season 2 of the ClickerCast. Of course, we've been rounding this up every week for 7 weeks now. This is our 2nd season. Enjoyed the show so far? Recapping it?
I have indeed.
It feels like it's gone at a pace. And
you know what? As much as I am a little bit down on the season, I do still think it's a fantastic show.
Yeah, the quality is unchallenged. I don't think I watch anything on Netflix or Disney Plus that, I mean, actually scratch that, Andor season 2 is phenomenal, but in terms of like the quality of TV that we're observing here, for as much as we have gripes and stuff, I mean, I'm someone who used to enjoy watching the Arrowverse with Supergirl and that. So, and we've watched
there's a step up in quality
significantly, in performance and stuff. And they're all great. Everything's great. You can have fun with it. But of course, we'll be back, no doubt, presumably after a 2-year hiatus for ClickerCast season 3. In the meantime, though, if you do want to check out more Last of Us content, we do have the full playthroughs of Part 1 and Part 2 remastered up on the channel now to go watch. That's about 40, 50 hours of content probably, Richie. So if you want to go enjoy the story in its entirety without a seasonal hiatus, go check it out there, available now. If you want to go back and rewatch season 1, that's all recapped with us here on the channel too. But more importantly, if you're into video games, if you like content we do here, you can support us from from as little as 99p by clicking join below on the YouTube video. Or if you're into video games, we do a weekly podcast, the GamerGuild Podcast, where myself, Richie, and some of our best friends get together to round up all of the weekly gaming news. Every Monday we go live at 8 a.m. here on YouTube and available on podcast platforms. Just search for the GamerGuild Podcast or GamerGuild TV and you'll find us there. But for the meantime, do run along to the comments, stalk us on social media at GamerGuild TV, clicker that notification bell, blow to yourself on all of our other amazing content, and above all else, endure and survive. My name's been Chris.
And I've been Richie.
We've been GamerGuild TV, bringing you HBO's The Last of Us breakdown every week on the ClickerCast. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.